Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into two incredibly dramatic events from the War of 1812. We're looking at trials of fire, literally, and triumphs of liberty. These aren't just isolated dates on a page. No, these are the exact moments that completely rewired how Americans view their own history and how a very young nation forged its identity.
So put yourself right in the shoes of the people living through this. Your country is at war. It's a terrifying prospect. How in the world can a crushing, humiliating defeat, right at home, paired with a stunning, unexpected victory thousands of miles away, shape who we are today? Keep that question rolling around in your head as we explore, because the answer tells us a whole lot about human nature and national memory.
Which brings us to Part 1, The Capitol in Flames and a Brave Choice.
By August 1814, the United States was pushed to its absolute breaking point. The survival of this young republic was genuinely hanging by a thread. Just look at the sheer whiplash of this timeline. We start in August 1814 with a devastating invasion. Then, fast forward a bit to December, and a peace treaty is actually signed. But wait, January 1815 rolls around, and a massive, historic battle is fought. Why? Literally just because of the era's incredibly slow communication. News traveled at the speed of a sailing ship, setting up a completely bizarre and dramatic sequence of events.
Let's zoom in on that first point. August 1814. Imagine looking out your window and seeing your own capital city in flames. British troops had successfully invaded Washington, D.C., and they systematically torched public buildings, including the White House itself. This was a devastating blow to morale. It broadcasted to the entire world exactly how vulnerable and fragile the United States was. Just a profound psychological defeat. But right in the middle of that absolute nightmare, we get this incredible story of courage. First Lady Dolly Madison made a split-second, incredibly brave choice to save the portrait of George Washington before fleeing the burning Capitol. She wasn't just grabbing a piece of art, she was actively preserving a national symbol during the ultimate crisis. It really grounds this sweeping macro-level history into a highly memorable act of personal, human resilience.
Okay, let's move into Part 2, Victory at New Orleans.
From the smoldering ashes of Washington, the narrative shifts drastically. Down in Louisiana, January 1815, General Andrew Jackson steps up to the plate. He leads a totally ragtag group of American forces to a completely stunning victory against a highly trained, massively superior British army in New Orleans. It was the kind of spectacular military achievement that absolutely no one saw coming.
But here is the profound irony of it all. As we touched on earlier, the war was technically already over. The Treaty of Ghent had been signed over in Europe the month before. But because of that slow 1800s communication, neither army in New Orleans had a clue. They fought this brutal, historic battle that didn't even strictly need to happen, and yet it changed American history forever.
Let's unpack this in Part 3, Defeat, Victory, and Identity.
So we have the burning of the Capitol on one side and the absolute triumph at New Orleans on the other. Why do these two totally opposite events matter so much for national identity today? Well, they perfectly illustrate a stark contrast. The defeat in Washington laid bare a desperate need for unity. It was a massive wake-up call about vulnerability. But the victory in New Orleans? That was a massive shot of confidence and national pride. It basically proved that Americans could stand toe-to-toe with the greatest military machine on earth and actually win.
The crucial takeaway here is how public memory works. It strongly tends to cling to victories. A burned Capitol could have been a permanent stain on national morale, defining a whole generation as a failure. But New Orleans washed away that bitter taste. It allowed the war to end on this incredible high note in the public consciousness, solidifying the conflict as a success and turning Andrew Jackson into an absolute national legend overnight.
Let's do a quick, rapid-fire check to lock in what we've covered. Can you answer these 5 key homework questions? First, what buildings were burned in Washington, D.C.? Second, who bravely saved the portrait of George Washington? Third, when exactly did the Battle of New Orleans happen? Fourth, why is Andrew Jackson connected to this war? And finally, how did the Battle of New Orleans fundamentally shift American morale? If you've got the answers to those, you have nailed the core historical narrative. Moving on to our final section, Education, Morality, and Peace. Grasping how defeat and victory forge a nation's identity is great historical knowledge for sure. But let's bring this big picture down to something that impacts your personal identity every single day. Think back to Washington, D.C. in flames. They lacked a defense.
Just like a vulnerable young nation desperately needs a fortified tower of unity and resilience to survive, true safety in our own lives comes from a strong spiritual foundation. Proverbs 18:10 puts it perfectly. The name of the Lord is a fortified tower. The righteous run to it and are safe.
And this idea beautifully captures the philosophy of the Heroes Mart Academy Godly Learner series. It's a very simple, logical flow. Step 1, education, combined with Step 2, biblical morality. When you fuse those two together, the result is the ultimate prize, true peace of mind. And this isn't just wishful thinking. It's a promise straight from Romans 8:6-7, which assures peace to everyone who keeps their mind spiritual. It's about finding that genuine safety and clarity.
Because let's be totally honest with ourselves here. Education all by itself is not a magic shield. In fact, education without morality will actually hurt you. What is the point of being smart, having all the facts, and being highly educated if you just keep making bad choices that damage you and the people around you? A razor-sharp mind without a moral compass is basically a powerful ship without a rudder. It is going to crash eventually.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I'm going to leave you with one final, provocative thought to challenge yourself with as you continue your studies, both in history and in everyday life. Ask yourself honestly, are you truly pairing your education with the right moral choices? Thanks for exploring this fascinating slice of history and philosophy with me today. Keep learning, keep questioning, and make sure your foundation is built on rock-solid ground.